Welcome to ThinkTech. Welcome to ThinkTech on a given Wednesday. I'm here with Hillary Weinberg, and we're having a show where we exchange ideas about doing shows. And the first thing I want to say, we got a great tweet. It said, "Catch us live, weekdays 12 to 5," sort of emulating ThinkTech.
Don't forget to follow us on Twitter if you don't already.
Yeah.
We're at ThinkTech HI.
Yeah, it's important. We want to interact. We want to know what you're thinking, and we want to tell you what we're thinking, and we want to think together. We always say that in our OC16 shows.
Yeah.
So Hillary, you've been doing shows under the whole gamut, which is a pretty expansive name for a show. That's because you can, you know, so not everybody can do that. You can go to one side or the other side. You can chase the whole world if you want. So tell me where it's been successful for you and where you've had challenges.
Well, the challenges are easy. I mean, to start, it's always difficult to get people to come on the show because it's very daunting to be on live TV for 45 minutes at a time and to talk about things. What's successful is once people actually are on the show, they end up relaxing and really talking about things. And you know, I bring people on that are real experts in their field, and once you get them talking about the things they're very passionate about, you can't stop them. I mean, there's been shows where I'm like trying to wrap up, you know, the 45 minutes as we're cutting to commercial because there's so much to say.
Yeah, it's interesting. It sort of depends on the chemistry, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because if you somehow, you know, convince that person you're really interested, and ask them just those questions and unzip, you know, and we've all had those experiences where you ask exactly the right question and it all tumbles out of the closet. But I remember situations, I mean, it hasn't happened to me, but I remember situations where hosts would, you know, they would have a certain sort of brittle way of looking at the show and the guest, and they didn't ask questions like that. And then there was one that turned to the camera and to me, I was behind the camera about 20 minutes in, and she said, I don't have any more questions. I'm done.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, this is a 45-minute show.
Yeah, and
what
it's
are you
something that's
talking
actually is quite scary when you're on live TV because there are times like when I had Guy Ziv on, we were like, okay, we're gonna talk about Israeli-Palestinian conflict, but it's so big that we have to make sure we stay on topic and we kind of keep it, because otherwise we're gonna not get to the questions, and we start running through the questions too quickly. And that's a big problem as well.
How about going too slowly? You can go too slowly too, and you wind up, you got 1 minute left to discuss, you know, the title subject of the show.
But that doesn't worry me because then I can say, well, we have to have you back to continue talking.
Yeah, good. Yeah, good. You know, and it's okay to have people back. I really think that's good. Somebody asked me, was it you recently, you know, can I have somebody else who some other host brought in a few weeks ago? Yeah, do it. You know, we want to cover the interesting people, and if two hosts think that person is interesting, let's go for it. The idea is to push into the corners. So what is your favorite show so far that you've had?
Oh, I'm not sure. I liked when I talked to Professor Ziv. Well, that's on my brain.
What was the subject of that show?
American Jewish and Israeli relations. So that's something I'm very passionate about and very interested in. And I love having Carl Schuster on the show because he's been a repeat guest and he prepares so much. Yeah. It makes it so easy for me because he always has, and he gives me papers before, and he go, you know, a couple days before, and he goes, this is what I want to talk about. This is what I was thinking the order should be, and he really talks to me about it. Yeah. I have a show coming up, well, today, very soon, with Samuel Fufari, who is the European Commission, and he is someone who his writings have been, and his ideas have been controversial, so that's exciting as well. Yeah. And with the election season, I'm very excited to continue to have people come and talk about the election
really
cycle.
Interesting.
Because now it's heating up, and now I'm hoping to have people on at least once a month to talk about it and you know what's going to happen.
And the idea is to get them to tell you how they really feel. Because a lot of people, as you said, you know, they'll see this as an experience where they've got to contain themselves. They can't say anything candid. They can't talk out of the box. So they wind up saying all the, ritualistic things.
Right.
And you don't get that. That's not what we do here. We try to get new ideas, and I like to do that every show if I can. It's a matter of having a conversation, relaxing the person, but also asking questions that unzip. I without going into detail, I've had a couple of really remarkable shows this week. Today's Wednesday, where I asked a question. Not necessarily intentionally, that just it resulted in a tumble of information, and I really enjoy that. And I know what's happening, right? And I sit and I watch, and listen. I'm fascinated, with what's the phenomenon of it.
Right. Well, and you as well end up bringing in a lot of people live, whereas I end up Skyping a lot of people.
It's okay.
And it's okay, but it's a completely different experience
Yes, it
when you
is.
have
That's
someone live,
true.
because having someone Skype and having them relax on Skype is a lot harder, because you have not only the technical difficulties and the distance bridged by it, but there's a lot less, hey, talking beforehand, they can't see the studio, and they can't see, meet our wonderful staff and kind of relax and
Can't give them a bottle of water.
Right, joke with them. And for them, it's their, having that in-personal connection over the internet is quite challenging. So I'm working on it and trying to do a lot of emails beforehand with the guests. But what tips do you have? What makes the best shows? How do you find the best guests?
I'll tell you about my best radio show, which I remember till today. It was probably 10 years ago, but it really was fabulous. I got interested in Siberia because I saw something on PBS about some fellow out of Michigan, I think, or one of those cold states up there, who decided after graduating college that he liked pizza. So he was going to go and open a pizza parlor in Siberia, where it's cold and pizza's warm. And he was very successful. And it turned me on to Siberia. Lake Baikal, for example, a phenomenal freshwater lake that's so big, and all this incredible stuff. Siberia is still, after Stalin and all the bad stuff, and the Gulag and Birobidzhan, and there was bad things happen. It's like still locked up, still kind of radioactive, in terms of the media. But I thought we'd go in there and find out what was going on in technology in Siberia. So we focused on universities that taught science, a lot of science schools in Siberia now, in cities that used to be numbered, with researchers that used to work on atomic bombs. Stalin's thing, that was his thing. And we had 4 guests. We had one in the Vladivostok Technical School, FESTU, the Far East State Technical University, the president of the university, very Russian. And then we had a guy in Washington with an NGO, who he gave money to fallen Russian scientists to keep them out of trouble. We had a former State Department consul general out of Vladivostok. She was coming back. She was an R&R in the East-West Center. She was my studio guest. And we had a poet, a Russian poet in the University of Washington, because on the theory that you can't possibly understand Russia without having a poet.
Right.
I guess that's true. Anyway, so 4 points, and we had them all on the phone at the same time. We were straddling the world with these people.
That's great.
It was fabulous. I tell you, I learned so much, and I felt, that it was a statement of excellence, accidental, but excellent. And the other, was just a few days ago. There's all this trouble in Ankara, bombings going on in Ankara, and we just happened to have a local graduate of HPU who was doing research in Istanbul. And he was on the show a couple of weeks ago, just a sort of a general discussion of what's going on in Turkey, right next to Syria, with all the threat of that. But after the bombings took place over this past weekend, I called him back on Skype. And now we had a discussion of exactly what was going on and how Turkey was devolving. It's very...
That's great.
It was great.
Because one thing that you seem to be quite good at, and I struggle with, is finding guests quickly enough to keep up with the news. Because I find that there's generally like a 2 or 3 week lag where there's something I want to talk about. By the time I find someone, it's like, it's past. What do you do? How do you get people on to talk about things that are going?
Hook or crook. You know, I mean, another great experience that I had was there was a fellow who was written up in the New York Times one morning, and he was a technology guy. This is right after 9/11. He was a technology guy, and he did social networking analysis, meaning that he could rewrite the schematic of a corporate organization based on email. Okay, this is early social network analysis. And to his dismay, he found that all his colleagues had disappeared, dropped out of their job, didn't know why. Finally, he found out that they were all in Washington working for NSA.
Oh, wow.
And they were doing social network analysis on terrorism. This was the early days of, you know, the Patriot Act and wiretapping and black boxes in your favorite email provider's office. And he was really ticked off because they didn't hire him. He wanted to go to Washington too. So anyway, I found him in the New York Times and I called him. I found his number and I called him and I said, how would you like to be at our Hawaii radio show? And he did, he wanted it.
Wow.
So we had a really fabulous, and it was right now, it was today, the New York Times. Just as the show on you know, Turkey was today in the New York Times.
Yeah.
So all I can say is read the New York Times.
Read the New York Times, and it seems that you have to constantly be emailing people and constantly be finding new people and lining them up if you think something's about to happen.
Yeah, but isn't that fun?
Yeah.
If you have to have enough time and gumption for it, but you know, every day you have to put a little time in and line them up some time in advance and be ready to change them if you need to. And you know, a lot of shows go off the side because the Rolodex dries up. That the host, you know, doesn't put the time in, you know, it's like I asked my brother one time, he does a lot of television, and I said, what do you do to prepare for all these appearances you make on television? Do you sit, you know, do you read, do you scope the internet, what do you do? And he said, no, I'm always preparing. Whatever I do, I walk down the street, I'm having breakfast, I'm in the shower, I'm always preparing. And it's that kind of focus, you know, that really helps you. So every do-si-do that you have in the world, everything you read, everybody you meet, any party, a party is just it's a bowl of fish. and they're all your prospective, you know, hosts, guests. So, I mean, and your Rolodex has to grow. It's not a static thing.
Right. And I found cold calling people, half the time they don't respond. But I've gotten a few interesting people that I've just, hey, I would like to have you on the show. Or, okay. You know, I mean, it helps if someone knows someone, but you can't always rely on your Rolodex.
No. Well, it's a Rolodex. It's more than a Rolodex. It's your mental Rolodex.
Right.
You know? Yeah. And in my view, and I urge you to look beyond the borders of our state. Not necessarily to take topics from outside our state, that's, you know, sure, but to find things that are relevant to our state from people who are outside our state. See if they will stretch a little and talk about their area of expertise as it pertains to Hawaii. You know, yeah, the world is your oyster. I'm so glad you're into this.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, so work on the Rolodex, work on reading materials from outside. And since you have the whole gamut, there's no limit to what you can do. We negotiated that at the outset.
That's true.
You have no boundaries.
Yeah.
The
We couldn't
Renaissance
decide what we
woman.
wanted me to focus on. We were like, well, maybe Middle East or maybe Pacific, but someone else was doing Pacific. And we were like, we'll do it all. And we'll see what sticks. You know, throw spaghetti at the wall and see what gets a lot of views and see what people tweet back at us and see what it's the most fun and the most interesting.
Yeah, and then one day you look around and say, gee, I've been talking to a lot of people about a lot of things that I didn't know about before. You know, I'm really getting an education on this. So what shows have you got planned?
Well, I have some wonderful student leaders that are working on politics and bringing politics to students and students to politics and getting issues for millennials on the table because there have been, this is something I'm actually very, very passionate about. I believe in this election cycle, it's all about distractions. It's, the Planned Parenthood and Hillary Clinton's emails and Benghazi and building a wall in Mexico. And it's all these big flashy distractions, which are not the things that people in my generation care about and will vote about.
You listened to the debate last night, didn't you?
I didn't.
That's what they talked about.
I haven't listened to the debate yet, but in the in the media so far, there have been so few, and now I'm excited to go home and watch the replay.
Yeah.
But there's so few people discussing student loans, debt, how people in my generation can't find jobs.
Yeah.
They can find a job, they can, whatever, but they won't find jobs that create careers for them, give benefits, provide opportunities for them to grow and expand. And from that, we're stifling the economy because people aren't buying cars. They aren't, not new cars for sure. They aren't buying houses. They aren't starting families. So people talk about the economy. It's like, well, yeah, you have to think about people that are coming up. Because everyone else that's retiring, they're retiring. They're starting to be done, the older generations. So that's something I'm really excited about, and I have a few guests coming on the show over the next month or two.
Good.
To talk about this.
Good. This is a major issue. It will be a major issue in the campaign, I think. And the landscape between the Republicans and the Democrats, the difference is so stark. I love Bernie Sanders. I love the way he thinks. He's really out of the box. Whatever label you want to put on him, he recognizes what you're talking about. And he recognizes that, there's a different thought process in the millennials and a different obligation. And this is going to be at issue, not only in the election, but going forward. The problem is, and you can tell me how you feel about this. I mean, I'm happy you're addressing this. Not every member of your age group is. Not every millennial is recognizing the power of being a millennial.
Right.
A lot of millennials don't read the paper. They don't vote. They don't care about civic process. They have these views, and you express them accurately, I think, but they don't carry that forward. They don't try to advocate for those things. They don't try to change the community. And if the millennials could get together, it would be a profound change in our community. I personally would welcome that, although change is hard for some people. But that's what you can do. That's what we can focus the whole gamut on something like that. It would be really fabulous.
Yeah, that would be fun, huh?
Yeah. So the millennial issue is tremendous. I'm going to get more tremendous. And you can bring them in here, and you can not only find out what they think, but you can encourage them to do something about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What about Hawaii? Have you got anything going on Hawaii, specifically?
Well, I think there's people coming from some of the universities, still working on it, still working to find people. So if anyone in our audience knows people that are making a difference in Hawaii, please forward them to me. I am new to the island, as we've discussed. So I am, constantly looking for people because I'd love to have more Hawaii-focused shows. When we talked about the Jones Act, that was great.
We're going to do a program on the Jones Act
You are?
in January.
Oh, great.
And we're not taking prisoners. The way it works, I hope you get involved in this. The way it works is every month, except some months not. This month we're doing the arts in Hawaii. That's in a couple of weeks. That is going to be we have a fantastic lineup. And in fact, Donna Blanchard, one of our hosts, is going to host that program, luncheon program, doing the Jones Act in January. We're going to do jobs. We're going to do jobs in February. We're going to have some business guys who know a lot about making jobs and holding staff together and making it work in a company with motivated, engaged staff. And then in March, we're going to have our perennial midterm legislative report, find out what's going on in the legislature, what's good, what's bad, what's happening, what's not happening.
Interesting. I think that jobs point is very interesting because there's a big problem right now for people finding jobs that will give them benefits, that will create opportunities career-wise, and that gives stability. Because if you have a job and that's only paying you hourly, or even if you're getting salaried, but you don't know, for example, a lot of military contractors on island, they don't know if their contract will continue. Well, they're not going to make that big investment.
Right.
If you don't have health insurance, or if you're not sure about the state of your health insurance, or your 401k, you're not going to make those investments. You're not going to take those risks. And in some ways, it's created a lot of opportunity because people say, well, I'm not finding a job, and there's a ton of entrepreneurship out there that people in my generation are doing, but they're just, but when it comes to building career, companies are going to be at a huge disadvantage because they're not training their future workforce. There's all this big problem of these unpaid internships where people come in and they work for free. And
like our hosts.
That's volunteer, and most of your hosts are pretty established professionals and established in the community.
Yeah.
That's volunteer. That's not, you're not coining it as an internship. You're not coining it anything like that. But the big problem is companies that say, well, we don't hire entry level, we hire interns. And then they're, training people, spending all this capital on people, bringing them in, and then they lose them after 6 months. And they don't provide opportunities, and there's something, there have been laws passed about this, but they're not enforced at all. Because the problem is, any entry-level job you apply for out there expects 2 or 3 years experience. How do you get experience if it's an entry-level job?
We're reinventing the country on that, I think it's being reinvented around us while we watch. Your generation is reinventing the whole notion of having partners, of having affiliations, alliances, some kind of collaborating on entrepreneurial things, which is not going to build steel mills. That's not going to build steel mills. The next thing for your generation to do after they learn about entrepreneurship is to build the steel mills. In companies they like, impact companies that do the right thing, that are not, big bad multinationals, but that care about the community, but also have the capital. And that's what, God, you have a tough row to hoe, Hillary. You better start working on it. This is where you can work on it. Changing the way people think, the way your generation thinks, in terms of taking over. You need to take over the reins of our country. Maybe you should run for president. Oh, wait, there's already a Hillary.
Maybe not this round.
Yeah, I mean, we have a whole system to reorganize, and it has to happen now. And I sound very optimistic about it, but the reality is that if we don't reorganize it, we're going to go sliding down the hill. So we must.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, a problem we have, and it's not something. My politics have actually started changing a lot because I'm not sure where the answers lie. But is you have a lot of young Americans going to China because we think there's opportunity there. And there is opportunity there. You can open a business, you can become very successful. We have a lot of people, there's, living with their parents still. We have a lot of people not finding any sort of stability, not being able to, actually it's affecting a lot of people's personal lives because they're forced to choose between having a stable job and staying with a partner. And I can tell you how many couples I know that have had to split up because they both wanted, stable jobs, and they didn't want to wait for a partner on either end, and they had to move cities. And I wonder if this is.
Is that good or bad?
I think it's bad because I think people end up. I am all for going new places and starting over and traveling, but when you feel like you're forced to do that, I don't think that's good. I don't think that's good for the psyche of the generation, where they're constantly being forced to start over and go to new cities, and you don't have a social network, so to speak, in these new places. And if you're going for a new opportunity, that's great. But if you're looking in where you live and there aren't jobs, if you're in New York City or St. Louis or wherever and you can't find a job, then that's a problem because that's run a brain drain on a lot of communities. And it causes gentrification in these other cities. And it prevents people from starting families and feeling secure, socially. And, you wonder why all these internet dating sites are doing so well. It's because people, show up at a new city and they don't know anyone. They don't And how are they going to meet someone?
Yeah.
They don't even have friends to go out to the bar with. How are they
Yeah.
going to meet someone?
Yeah.
So I think I mean, if you want to go and do all the traveling and starting over, that's great. But people who want to stay in a place and, are committed to a community, they can't find a job. I think there's a lot of problem with this. Well, correct me, you're a longer term resident of Hawaii than I am, but in Hawaii, people want to stay in Hawaii, but it's hard to find a career in Hawaii.
Yeah. So we have to reorganize things so that they can, because if you have, past a certain tipping point, that people who are young, vital, potentially productive, but who in fact are not productive, then you have a diminishing society. You have a community at risk. And I don't think people recognize how dangerous that is. It's not just that, you can't have all the goods and effects you want. It's that the whole enchilada could come apart. The wheels could come off. And we could have a failure of our nation state. This is serious business, and I think that productivity is the most important thing, that everybody should be engaged in doing something. It's not a question of whether they're having a great time. We like that, but the idea is to set up a system where everybody is being productive. The more people that are not productive, the more at risk the society is.
Well, it's one thing if you want to follow a passion, follow a dream, and that's fine, then it's not necessarily a career, that's one thing. But if people who want to be productive, who want to have careers, who want to make families, who want to settle, or, just have your average middle class life, and they're struggling so much to do that, that's a problem.
Yes, it is. That's a threat also. Mm-hmm. So, you could focus on that in your show. I mean, you're not going to focus on any one thing exclusively. I know that, and I welcome that. But, it's one thing that you could look at, and that is, how are people doing? How is the millennial group doing in terms of finding a job they like, having a community that lets them couple, that lets them have kids, that lets them do the recreational things they want too. And what are their options if those things aren't available? What are they likely to do? And if they fail in all capacities, what happens to them? Is it a homeless issue? Is it a departure from the state issue? And you can get a beat on things. You can actually begin to prognosticate how our given society will work. When you talk to enough people, you'll figure it out. Ooh, I'm excited to think about all the things you can do.
Yeah, it's an idea. So, turning it back to you, why did you start ThinkTech, and what are you hoping to accomplish with this platform?
ThinkTech was started before it started. I was a lawyer practicing in real estate, and I was the program director of the Building Owners and Managers Association. And I put on luncheon programs, and I did outreach for them. And they were my clients, so that was easy. It was a client development experience. But then in 2001, I had an opportunity to actually get involved with the media, and that was really the beginning of ThinkTech. We had 4 of us then. We had a radio show for 8 years, and ultimately we turned to video. That's how it got started. Why it got started, I think different people have built different ways. Maybe you and I have a similarity in that, we would like to give, we would like to share, we would like to reach out and tell people things they don't know, improve their lives, improve their, what do you want to call it, knowledge base, tell them things they don't know. And that's really why I do this. But I also do it because I think that's necessary. It's not just an option, it's not just an extravagance. It's necessary in this community that somebody do it. And I'm so lucky that I can do that. And I'm so lucky to have somebody like you and other hosts who can do that. So we collectively are making a difference, you understand, yeah? Okay, Hillary, almost out of time here. So what's your closing statement to the people who might be interested in watching this discussion?
Please become a part of the show. Please tweet. Please send us your ideas. Send us the people that you would like to see interviewed, and send us topics that you would like to hear more about.
Yeah, good.
That's it.
Good.
And watch the show, because the you know, I pay attention to how many people watch the YouTube videos, to the ratings and everything, and the ones that do well, I'm going to repeat.
Yeah. So, we have a team. We have 20, 25 hosts. We have guests who come and go and reappear a lot. And we have a lot of people who follow us on Twitter. We have a little community of our own. But I guess the point I would make to you is it's more than just us. We are trying to build a larger community of people interested in the same kinds of things. Stumble and bumble down the road. That's what we're trying to do. So thank you for helping in it, Hillary.
Thank you.
Yeah.